was always kind of taught to dream big and think like a leader. How can we hack the system?
We are producers to its core. We're makers.
That was that moment where I was like, yes, like this was a big one to put us on the map.
Creativity is messy. Perfect is boring.
That to me is good creative. That to me is success.
You can see talent in people. We want to go create the next best brand in the world.
This is who we are and this is what we do.
This is Creatives Offscript. Pons Jewell has taken the commercial directing world by storm. Since directing his first commercial only a few years ago, he has risen to the top of the ranks for commercial directors worldwide, signing with Reset Content and directing spots for the likes of Apple, Oculus, Xbox, Jack Daniels, and more. With his signature surreal visual style, commercial producers have voted Ian the #1 commercial director in the world for 2 years running. So without further ado, welcome to our show, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So on this podcast, we really like to hear about the journey of how somebody rose from the beginnings of their career all the way to, where you currently are at as one of the top commercial directors in the world, and also breaking into the feature film industry. So off the bat, would love to just learn about your early life. Tell me, where did you grow up and how early on did you realize that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
So I was born in Menorca, which is an island off of Barcelona, so a Spanish island. Mm-hmm. So I was born there, then was there for like 2 years, then we went to England, 2 years, then back to Menorca 2 years, and I lived in Sussex, Surrey, West Yorkshire. We were always moving around based on my mum's career, because she's sort of changing positions and companies. I think the longest place we lived in at one house was like just under 4 years.
It's almost like a military upbringing.
Yeah, but not sort of going around to many different countries. It's going from like Sussex to Halifax. Mm. It's a little village actually near Halifax called Ripponden. Yeah, so yeah, kind of moved around a lot early life and always loved films. I'm an only child. And naturally, have a lot of solid on your own time, more than, say, someone with siblings probably. And my parents were very chill with letting me just watch anything that they'd recorded. And they recorded a lot of stuff on VHS, as you did back in the day. So we had a fair few VHS recordings of films that were on TV and whatever. And I would just go and put something on and watch it. And I'd say I watched quite weird films at a very young age. I watched The Devils at I must have been 8 or something like that. That film is seared into my brain.
Do you remember any films that specifically had an impact on you?
Yes, the most powerful was 2001. It was across 2 tapes because you know how long it is. And I watched the whole thing. And that definitely has never left me, that experience. Mm. As an only child, I think you kind of live in your head quite a lot. And films, that experience of watching them was definitely a big part of my early life, I'd say. Never, ever thought, I want to make films. That never crossed my mind. Mm. I did a bit of acting at school. I did drama. I did art. I did photography. Didn't like any sciences. Then I did A-levels, I did a media studies course, and I made a fake commercial. And I enjoyed that process. We made a fake pot noodle commercial where my idea was this girl wakes up screaming and her boyfriend runs out the house and goes on this journey, just constantly sprinting to the shop, buys a pot noodle and runs back, and she's still screaming, just in this constant scream state, and then gives her the pot noodle, and then she stops screaming. And that was this commercial that we made. And yeah, that was the first thing I ever made. I don't have it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's got to be the first spot on your director's reel these days, right?
Exactly, but it sucks. I have no idea where that would be. Yeah, and then didn't know what I wanted to do still. was going to do German or advertising as a degree. I liked German and had some German friends and had gone over there, and I don't know why, I just thought, oh, maybe I'll do German. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And then luckily my mate, Tim Caramola, told me, oh, why don't you do film production? And I was like, what's that? He goes, oh, it's, you know, you make films. And then he hooked me in when he said it's 80% practical. And I was like, I just couldn't believe you could make films for 3 years and get a degree. It was like, I must have had some like quite conservative opinion of like degrees in the back of my mind. Yeah, and I applied and used this pot noodle thing, and I did a stage play of The Young Ones, which you highly unlikely you know that. It's this like cult comedy from the UK. It's really amazing. I recommend it. And we got together some friends and we did a stage adaptation of that. So I had a VHS recording of me acting as Rick Mail from The Young Ones in this stage play version of it, and a fake pot noodle commercial, and some essays. And I got in to the university. It was called Surrey Institute of Art and Design, and then it got changed to, now it's University College for the Creative Arts. And I got in there, did the degree, and then as soon as I did the second project there, it was like, got hit by this train. You know, it was like, this is it. Like, this is what I'm going to do till it's physically impossible for me to do it.
Wow. Yeah. What was film school like for you? Was it a valuable experience looking back?
Highly, highly valuable. I mean, if I hadn't gone, I don't know if I would have... it actually legitimately petrifies me to think about what I would have done had I not found film, because had I done German as a degree, or, you know, advertising, I don't know, I don't think I would have found my way there. But, you know, I didn't. I did find it. So it's kind of also a bit of a pointless imagination exercise to think, what if, you know, anything, what if I crossed the street the wrong way and got hit by a bus? But yeah, so it was highly, highly valuable. And that's not to say everyone should go to film school. I think the costs of it now in the UK is criminal. I mean, the US, I can't even speak to that because it's nuts. But the good thing with it is it gives you a mental space to be focusing on it. But if you already know that you want to dabble in it or do it, you could even calculate the amount you would spend now on fees and put it towards like 10 short film projects, and you'd learn quite a bit on it. But, you know, being around others who were learning it and the energy and everything, I think for me it was everything. My feature that we're doing, that's Hunter Andrews is the writer. He's a genius, and I went to uni with him. My grad film was produced by him. You know, we went to school together, and now my first film, we've completed the final draft. Yeah, you know, Doug Walsh was the DP of like my first music videos, which was game changer in terms of my career. You know, the work we did with Doug, like Bolivia, he came out to Bolivia, and now he's focused on Steadicam, and I work with him still, and camera operating, and yeah, so it was huge for me, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. Building that network of early collaborators. And in film school, of course, you're probably just immersing yourself in film. You know, you have this surrealist style that's so unique. You already mentioned, you know, a film 2001, Stanley Kubrick, had an impact on you. Anything else that stood out in these early formative years as you're really studying film as directors, or films that really help to influence your creative style and development?
Yeah, definitely. So I feel like what draws me to specific films is like purity level, I guess. So, you know, it goes without saying, Kubrick, like there's like an almost ominous perfection that exists, and it's not really describable. But what he does, all those little choices that he makes and what he's taken out, you end up with a piece of work that transcends. It's like,
Yeah.
you can't describe it, like 2001 is, I would argue, is the one of, if not the greatest work of art outside of film, like outside of whatever medium. It's like a cliche to say it's the best film ever made, but he had a huge effect in terms of going toward a space that only film can take your experience as a human as you watch it.
Yeah.
Fincher, of course, like huge fan, and his craft level is definitely influential in terms of the meticulous nature of his filmmaking is also inspirational. He did the Zodiac film and like solved a bunch of unknown elements of the actual criminal case. I mean, that's like the level that he's like, And then in terms of surreal reality and this kind of thing, it's not that, I don't think that's something that I would say comes from, again, it's like, say, Lynch, for example, like the biggest influence that's had on me is to remind me to be free. His craftsmanship is incredible, but his ideas are free. They're him. It's pure Lynch. And it's keeping whatever that pure source is inside you, is to go to that and let things come from that. And Robert Crumb, the illustrator, right? He's like, his whole rule is like, anything that comes in my head, I will draw. Like, he doesn't allow a filter in a way. So you can sometimes have ideas which, like, you try and write it down, it's like, this doesn't make sense, but you can feel it in your brain. And those influences sometimes can just be giving you a confidence to remember to follow your own, source.
Yeah, one of my favorite filmmakers who definitely dabbles in the surreal is Gaspar Noé with Enter the Void, one of my favorite films of all time.
This is really embarrassing, but I have to mention it because you brought it up, so it's clearly I have to say it. I've never seen it till a few weeks ago.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, to my shame. And for days, couldn't get it out of my head. It was just mind-blowing. And the freedom, again, like, it reminds you, like, do what you want to fucking do.
Yeah.
Film is so loaded with so many steps toward, a painter can get up and pick up a paintbrush and paint, or a writer opens their laptop or a pen and just starts writing. A filmmaker, we can have an idea, and then there's multiple years, millions of pounds, thousands of people between that initial inception of an idea and the work at the end. And through that process, like, to change it or to give up or whatever, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, I agree. Spike Jonze had a famous quote about that where he says, you just compromise a little bit every day, and all of a sudden you look up and you're so far away from that original place that you wanted to be, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, no, that's great. I love hearing about your influences and, what helped you develop your own very unique style. But back to, the career path. So you get out of college. After school, you were working a self-described terrible job, editing comedy clips. You were just trying to save up enough money to buy a DV camera. Describe that period in your life and what your outlook on the world was and what you wanted to become at that time.
When I was at uni, I went to Menorca, and my uncle worked as a security guy in a hotel called, I think it's still there, Ins Hotel. And he worked as a security guy, and I was looking to get to work all summer to get enough money to buy this camera. It's not the Z1, I can't remember the name of it. It's one down from the Z1. HDV camera.
Was this before like the Red Rock lens adapters? And
so I got it before those were even around.
Got it.
So I went and worked in this hotel as a waiter for 2 weeks till they put me on reception. And then I worked, it's like the worst receptionist in the fucking world for 3 months. I never learnt to close the till, like the money at the end, and you have to do all the close the till. They would like try and show me like every other day. I could never. They just gave up. So I worked there and got enough money to buy this camera. So that was at uni, and then the lens adapters came out on my final year. My grad film we shot 16mm, the one that Hunter produced. And it was shot by Joe Breinaker, who's DPing now. And my personal project, so you do like let's say a proper one, which is like the 60mm, and then the other one we shot on lens adapter. I don't know if it was Red Rock or not, but yeah, yeah. And then after that, I went to do this job, and it's like, it was funny. I feel bad saying terrible, but because it gave me I've got a lot of love for that job that I had. It was very funny. But yeah, it was like working in a startup. The guys put all his money into this and effort into this startup we were doing every day. It just never took off though. But yeah, it was like editing in this little room upstairs. And then my good friend Richard Paris Wilson, who's the director as well. So that was like at the beginning, and I finished university, went straight to London, managed to get this job and a room in Brixton where I lived there. So yeah, that was kind of the beginning.
And at this time you were, really shooting anything, corporate, weddings.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, this job was full-time, but, he was really cool, our boss, because he then would let me go do like, I think I did 4 days at one point, or even 3. So then I could do my own things, and he would let me use his camera. So if I did a corporate job, I had my camera and he'd let me use his as well. And I'd do, I'd go and I'd shoot random whatever things would pay me, like videography work,
And it seems like you wanted to break into commercials. You saw an opportunity there, but really spent 7 years back to back shooting music videos. And even at one point said you even gave up trying to crack into commercials. What was that period like? And what was it about the music video format that you loved so much?
Well, so unfortunately, there's no system or whatever for like short films I don't know how to describe it. It's like you make a short, you can't get money to do it. Once you've made it, you can't get your money back. And they don't get distributed to be seen, really. It's not like some short films like do well or whatever, but not really. So, you go to a short film festival, but it's very like short film bubbles, and it's not like it's really being seen by general public that much. So I had this 6 months into moving to London, I had this mortal fear like set in. It hit me like it was almost like this instant like come down. This hit me, and I was freaked out. I think, oh my God, I haven't made anything since I've left university. Like, I'm gonna be that guy, like one of many people who don't end up doing it. So then I started, right, I got to make something. So then I'd met this artist, Otto von Schirach, and thought maybe I'd do I said, if I do a short film, I don't know what to do, and where's it going to go? And so I figured if I do a music video, I do a video for an artist, and they've got an existing fan base, And so then I'm making creative work, but it's then actually getting distributed via their fan base. That was what drew me to music videos. It's making work that people actually watch, rather than a short film that goes to a festival and it's locked up for a year, not being able to be screened publicly till after it's done the festival rounds, and then it's just felt dumb to do that. So that's kind of why I did a music video. And then, after I did that one, and he let me do what I want. I wrote something, I put 2 tracks together. Like, he just sent me the albums, like, do whatever you want. He didn't give me any money, but he let me do whatever I wanted. Yeah, and we made that with like my good friends from uni, Matt King, and another great friend, Grant Alexander. Like, we did that one together, just 3 of us, in this old warehouse I lived in. Then I did one for my school friend, Teeth, who I've known since I was 11. I then did a video for him really early on, and people hear about it, they see it, then you get like interest, and then your budget goes from nothing to then some artist who's got 300 quid, you know, then the next one you got a bit more confident to say no to 100 and you try and push it to 4, you know. So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Up next, hear about Ian's first big commercial and how that vaulted him to the top of the industry. But first, we wanted to take a moment to tell you about Assemble, the industry-leading project management platform designed for video production teams. Assemble gives your team an end-to-end project management solution featuring calendars, task lists, asset management, file sharing, and more. And of course, this platform has been designed from the ground up by producers for producers. Assemble is being used by industry-leading production companies, agencies, and brands to help them streamline their content production. If you're constantly jumping between a multitude of tools and you just want one project management solution that can fulfill all of your workflow needs, try Assemble today. Our listeners get a special discount of 20% off their entire first year. Just use the code Offscript, that's one word, at checkout. Learn more at www.assemble.tv. You are listening to the Creatives Offscript podcast hosted by Assemble. And so 7 years shooting music videos, at one point you just flat out gave up trying to get into the commercial world. How did you stumble upon your first commercial job? What was that first break?
I went into it without having a clue what music video world was. I didn't know about production companies that have directors, and when I came out of uni I didn't know anything about. It was a bit shocking that they don't tell you any of this. I didn't know that there were like production companies with rosters and people doing music videos and you got reps. I didn't know about any of this, and I made a multitude of videos. 2009 was Otto von Schirach, and then it was only 3 years later after I'd done this jargon featuring Tiny Temper, the policeman taking MDMA one. That came out, and by that point I then knew about like promo news, so I sent it there, and David Knight, it's amazing, I love that guy, he put it up. He was really supportive, really amazingly supportive at the beginning, and he put that up, and then I started getting, I got an email from someone at a production company, you know, and then that's how I discovered that they existed, because I got contacted. And then because of that, then I was like, oh, there's commercials, yeah, and like directors who make commercials. I was like, as long as you're clueless. So then that's why I then knew that there were commercials, and then, you know, then I eventually signed to a company and struggled at the beginning to get one. But then, you know, I kept making more and more videos, and it just, nothing was happening. It just didn't happen. Oh, and then I did like some really bad one, kind of a commercial, and that would like give me enough. You know, I'd be able to live on it for like 6 months. I only got the first proper one in 2016.
And so what was the first big commercial you landed where you felt like, okay, this is it, I made it, like I'm a commercial director now and I've entered, you know, the big stage?
Yeah, it was the one with Anorak for Otello, which we shot in 2016. That was the one I was like, okay, wicked, it's happening, finally.
Yeah. And so you land your first big commercial in 2016. Now, just 5 years later, you've really catapulted to the top of the commercial world. I mean, it's been such a rapid rise for you, which I think is one of the most impressive things, is how quickly you've risen to the top of the commercial world.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of... oh, sorry, Karen.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, what happened, I did that one, and then I got another pitch came in, and Anorak were like incredible. You know, I got another pitch came in, and I pitched on that, and I won that one as well. And Anorak and like Christiana gave me a lot of confidence. They were great with creatively with like feedback on the treatment. And I still remember when Christiana called me, and I'd written the Hornback treatment, and she said it was great writing. And then I was like, oh shit, really? Like I didn't ever think I could, you know, write, like my writing is good or something. And, you know, it's all of that stuff was really helpful. And yeah, then I did that second one. So then I'd done this Otello right onto Hornback, did Hornback, then I got another one coming. So then I just calculated in my head, I just saw how fickle the industry is of, you know, directors who would do an ad and then not do one soon enough and be forgotten, or not make a good one. It's such a, like, you know, tricky fucking thing. And like, so I was so wary of that and fearful that I was like, right, now this is happening. My whole game plan was to solidify my place in ads as rapidly as possible, so that I then go and do film. I can always come back to it if I fail spectacularly at making. You never know what's going to happen, right? But like, then I very consciously just basically went militant on it and just kept pushing in ads and pushing the level and what I could get away with creatively and everything. And it was this crazy flow. I think I told myself 3 years. I'd do this for 3 years like crazy and then stop and make my film. But it ended up 4 years. But I did kind of stick to my timeline because it was 4, then the pandemic happened. You think that, oh, perfect, I can write my film whilst I'm in, you know, but you can't, like, life has been stopped. So, like, the flow of life not being around is kind of kills you. And then that film fell through anyway. And then I went back and I've been doing a bunch of commercials again.
Were you in London for the lockdown?
The first one in London, yeah.
Yeah, I had some friends there. I heard it was pretty rough there.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal.
So throughout your career, you bounced around to a few reps, and you're currently at Reset, one of the top in the world, and also a roster mate with David Fincher, coming around full circle. You've also announced the launch of your own production company for long-form film. What's the latest in your world?
Well, so I got a commercial on now, which is through my own setup for commercials. I'm launching a commercials production company, but it's not like that. It's like a project has come along, which I love. And it's the first time I've had the time and wanted to do a job which I'm also capable of producing through my own setup. So it's quite organic. So I'm doing this job now. It's not a kind of, right, doing my company thing. You know, the job's going great and everything, but yeah, let's see what happens. And then I've got a second one that we want to write, which we're waiting to work out when we can do it, and hopefully April or something. And then, you know, there's a book I'm looking at to do a series. So if that happens, and then you start building that architecture now with your dream of the future. The dream is that, like a painter, you can wake up, have an idea and do it. So the more architecture you create between you and shooting a film is what drives me in terms of earning money in commercials, in terms of having an infrastructure in place for commercials and an infrastructure in place for building that infrastructure in place for film allows that smoother ride to the end goal of making something.
And swinging back to the commercial world for a moment, you've done a lot of work with Apple. I've heard tons of stories about the experience of working with Apple and, you know, their CIA level security. What was that experience like shooting commercials for Apple?
Yeah, they do have CIA level security. They go, I mean, you've got like when you scout when you go to the location, they've got literally, you know, people, they look around the building to check like where someone could like look into a window or something like that. Like they scout, it all gets checked all around. And, you know, we use the word recce in film, which comes from reconnaissance, right? But they truly bring that meaning. Yeah, I mean, I've had amazing experiences working with them. It's really challenging and really great, you know, as you'd kind of imagine. The watch is by far the most annoying, difficult thing to film. I mean, it's a nightmare. So you imagine when you look at your watch, right? If you lift your wrist up, that's how you have to show it. But look at the distance between your hand and your chest. And then not only that, you want to shoot it at a varied angle and not just flat on over the top. So then where the camera goes is like right where the body is. You got no movement. It's not like filming.
Yeah, limited choices.
A phone, you can move it around a lot in the hand. The watch is a nightmare, but it's a cool challenge.
Yeah. Makes sense. So in a poll of commercial producers, you were recently ranked the -- commercial director for the second year in a row. How does it feel to achieve that type of recognition in such a short period of time?
It means a hell of a lot to me to get to when that was the first time, and the second time was really crazy and really means a lot because it goes without saying.
Absolutely. And so what's next? I know you got a feature film in the works. Would love to hear about what you see as the next phase of your career development from here.
Yeah, so we've got a top secret thing, which is happening, which unfortunately I can't tell you about, but that is not a film. It's the way that the production company is architecture and the film company is architecture. Let's say it's an architectural thing. That's been going since January. It's probably going to come out maybe a couple months. It will be a full year of that's just been running in the background amongst everything else. We've got a music video for Teeth, which is so can't wait to release that. It's incredibly violent and explicit and collaborative. So that's going to be coming out with this new top secret thing. I've got another music video that's out probably in a few weeks for Cold Man, which we're really excited about that. I've got a short film, which we shot in the first lockdown, the very first one in London. And that was shot just with just me and Mauro and this amazing, now good friend, taxi driver, Jason. And Em, who started off as PA, and she's producing, and she remotely, it was all remote during that first lockdown, running around and doing this thing. And, that was the first lockdown, and that's finally, being finished.
Out of curiosity, what's the motivation to make a short film now? I know you said early in your career you felt like they were pointless, but why now? Why a short film now?
They're not pointless. I love short films. I think we should be doing them all the time. The problem is the motivation to do them. You can't monetize them. You can't get budgets for them. So that's why we do music videos, because you get you get the 10 grand from the label. What are you going to do? Use a label's 10 grand to create something, or you're going to find 10 grand of your own money. Once you're doing commercials, you can do that. So that's all good. So now I can do a short film, no problem.
Got it.
I don't think that my whole point is they're not pointless. They shouldn't be pointless. And this thing that I'm not able to say fully is related to being able to make a point for them. So, and the reason I did that first one was because I was, that first lockdown it's very rare that the world experiences something which everyone in the world experiences, which is completely new to the human experience. The idea of a lockdown before the lockdown would be a mad idea. You just wouldn't fathom it.
Yeah.
And then, so when it happened, I was like, I've got to make something about this or using this, and because it was just to take a slice out of it. Like a time capsule, and there's empty streets. I'd go on these long walks around London, and it's no cars, nothing, and it's just insane. I was like, got to shoot something. This has got, so finally got an idea, and and then we did it. We actually did it a bit late. We actually did it as started to get more traffic and stuff, but still got away with it. But yeah.
Yeah, I remember Los Angeles at that time. Could drive down the 405 and not a car in sight. It was in the middle of the day.
I can't even imagine.
It was crazy.
LA with it.
Yeah. But so can you tell us a little bit about the feature and what you have in the works for that?
Yeah, so that's Hunter's idea that he had years before. Like he actually sent it to me, must have been 2016 maybe. He sent me the idea. It's a true story that happened in Bolivia. And I'd been in Bolivia shooting those videos and was going to even just move there. And so he sent me this idea and I loved it then, but, I was busy on little short things and wouldn't have been capable of doing it back then anyway.
Amazing.
And yeah, so now we reconnected again last year and got together in Portugal this year and yeah, did that. It's a horror story inspired by a horrible true story, yeah.
And have you started production on it, or it's about to go into pre-production?
No, it's just in, producer hands now. We've done a final draft, hopefully. And now it's just, let's try and find the money now. So,
well, excited to see that come to life.
I'm really just watching it with part of me gagging to, just want to make it. And another part of me really curious, like watching, right, let's see what happens now. Like, are we going to get the money, not get the money? Could this take 3 months? Could it take a year before I've got absolutely no idea what, how. And I'm just assuming the worst and thinking of other films. And, even with Hunter, we've got another one we want to do.
Nice. So for someone that's achieved such incredible success in the commercial world and now cracking the feature film world. Looking back, if you had to give advice to a young filmmaker starting their career fresh out of film school today, what would be the number one piece of advice that you would give them?
So practical advice would be stay time rich, not money rich. The most important thing once you're out this is like just practical advice, right? It's just to try and find a way to protect your time because time is invaluable. So, you're going to struggle trying to do a Monday to Friday thing to pay the bills and then you've just got the weekends, but you might be more comfortable financially doing that. But if you can find a way to stay time rich, but be more broke, that's definitely the better part, if you're not lucky enough to have financial support, trying to find that way of, it's worth putting some effort and focus into finding that little cash cow somewhere, or that's some way of staying time rich. When I would do videography jobs, it was really lucky I could do that because, you'd get like the day rate on that. I could do, even if I just did 2 jobs in a month, sometimes it'd be enough. More than enough to pay the bills. I had cheap rent as well. So yeah, that's like practical advice. And then I would say, great bit of advice I got was don't listen to the noise. And that's always stuck with me till now. It's just, you have to just forget about, it's great when nice things are being said about you or you're getting recognition and this and that. But you also have to block that out somewhat because it doesn't, ultimately, that's not going to help you making something, And then the other thing is then when you're not working and you're not producing stuff and you've got there's this busy hype industry with the next person making this and this next thing's coming out and this and that, then that can really affect you as well. So I think whether it's negative or positive, in terms of noise, which you just have to try and not listen to it much and just remember that you're creating work. And this advice I'm giving, I guess it's advice for, directors who might have a need to make films. Because there's also directors who love the craft and they want to do the craft, and that's very valid as well. And I guess, basically if you got this need to make work, then you do that, and don't listen to the noise or block it out a bit. Always be trying to be doing a project, have something going.
Yeah.
Even if it's shooting there's always a way to shoot stuff, you know.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Stay focused, stay level, and
don't be a cunt.
the number one. Yeah, amazing. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to follow the next steps of your career. And it was great talking to you today.
Likewise. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Ian. If you're interested in hearing more insight and inspiration from industry-leading creatives, click subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts to become one of our listeners today. You can also join our newsletter for more insider content by going to assemble.tv/blog and signing up there. And you can find me on all channels at Nate Watkin. And don't forget, if your producing team is in need of a project management solution, try Assemble today to streamline your production workflow. Our listeners receive a 20% discount for their first year by utilizing the promo code Offscript. That's one word at checkout. You have been listening to the Creatives Offscript podcast, sponsored by Assemble.